Bernie Sanders has been doing quite well in the polls. Let's take a look at the article. Sanders surges ahead of Iowa caucuses. Senator Bernie Sanders is rising in the polls ahead of Thursday's pivotal debate in Los Angeles, reestablishing his standing in the top tier of Democratic contenders with the Iowa caucuses less than 50 days away. Party leaders and the news media are taking notice now that Warren has slipped in the polls. So you guys remember for the last few months, Warren has been in second place nationally, and she's been doing pretty good. She's been surging, she's been rising, she's been holding that, but now she's starting to slip. And Bernie Sanders is taking her place. Buttigieg is sustaining attacks from every direction, and questions linger about whether former Vice President Joe Biden can go wire to wire as the frontrunner. Sanders appears to be hitting his stride at just the right moment, surging past Warren and cutting into Biden's lead in new national surveys. Cutting into Biden's lead. Why? Because Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, their bases, their voter bases, voter demographics overlap. Okay, so while Elizabeth Warren's voter base is about 70% white college educated, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, their voters, their supporters are usually working class, high school degree. Okay, Sanders leads in the Real Clear Politics average of polls in New Hampshire, and is second place in Iowa, only 3 points behind Buttigieg. So Buttigieg, if you haven't heard, is in first place in Iowa, which actually blows my mind. I have no idea why. I still think he has absolutely no way of becoming the nominee. God, I hope I don't eat my words. But I don't think he has a chance at this. So that surprised me, to be honest. But anyway, campaign officials say Sanders weathered the rough stretches on the strength of his firm base of support and unparalleled grassroots funding operation. The campaign did not panic or make dramatic changes in messaging or strategy in the fall after Sanders suffered a heart attack and appeared to be headed for a disappointing finish. So as you guys remember, after Bernie's heart attack, all the media could talk about was his heart attack. They wouldn't talk about anything else. Not that he was killing it with the donations. No, they were just focused on that, and they were saying, oh, it's the end of his campaign, he should drop out. Well, turns out y'all were wrong, because Bernie's killing it, smashing every goal possible. And, one important thing to note, as they're saying here, the campaign didn't switch anything up. They didn't change their strategy or the messaging. Matter of fact, they went harder. After that, he got the endorsement from AOC, from Ilhan Omar, from Rashida Tlaib. He got endorsement from Michael Moore. He got endorsement from Cardi B, from Ariana Grande. It came flooding in, baby. All right? And he started going even harder. They started doing all these rallies. Nothing switched up. They went even harder. They did even better. And you didn't see any huge structural reform. Like with Kamala Harris, we saw the signs, man. She was restructuring her campaign like every 2 weeks. She was closing offices down. No. We ain't seen none of that with Bernie. Instead, the campaign banked on Sanders' unwavering focus on economic issues and wealth inequality, believing that consistent message would win out in the end. It will. It's been winning out for 4 years, baby. Bernie Sanders was saying the same stuff since last election. Look at him. That's why he's the most popular politician in the country, because he hasn't changed that messaging, because he's been on message for the last 4 years. He ain't stopped campaigning since. The campaign believes the strategy is paying off in the stretch run to Iowa, leading to rising poll numbers, record fundraising, and big crowds. Nina Turner said no other candidate has as durable a base as we do. Preach it. So now he has an energized base, and we're starting to see his crossover appeal, and we can enumerate that too with 4 million donations and hundreds of thousands of volunteers. We have the receipts, and we have the moral clarity from a senator who has stood on the right side of justice for over 40 years, whether it's been popular or not. Nationally, Sanders is back in the game, surpassing Warren after trailing her by double digits and cutting into Biden's lead at the top. Now here comes the interesting part. The latest NPR-PBS-Marist national survey released Sunday found Biden with the support of 24% of respondents, Sanders at 22%, and Warren at 17%, with the Vermont senator leading amongst progressives, independents, men, non-white voters, and young people. Sanders has a 20-point lead over the next closest contender among voters under the age of 45. Okay, so what does that mean? Bernie Sanders is the most popular candidate among people of color. This is the cornerstone of the Democratic voter base. Okay, you can't win without people of color. You can't win without blacks. You can't win without Latinos or Latinx. And another thing, Bernie Sanders is smashing it with young people. Not only is he the most popular candidate for young people, he has a 20-point lead. This is huge, or huge, as Bernie would say. I mean, that is incredible. Have you ever seen a politician so popular with young people? Never. This is amazing. Amazing. This is why you need to tell every single millennial or voter under 45 that you know to get out and vote. When young people get out and vote, Bernie Sanders wins. Please go to voteforbernie.org, look up when the registration deadlines are for your state, and get your friends and family to go and register. You have to do this. When young people get out and vote, Bernie can win. Sanders has also raised more money than anyone else while reaching the 4 million donors milestone in record time. And polls routinely show that Sanders' backers are the most enthusiastic and most likely to have firmly made up their minds. Supporters are flocking to his town hall events. He has had the largest one-day crowds in both Iowa and New Hampshire, where high-profile surrogates helped him to attract record numbers. So I mentioned this in the last time we were covering the Bernie's polls. Bernie Sanders' supporter base are unwavering. They are the least likely to change and go to another candidate. Matter of fact, they are so adamant about Bernie Sanders and his progressive values, which are unparalleled, which no other candidate is offering, that were he not the nominee, not so sure that they're going to pick that nominee. In other words, they're not going to swallow the status quo candidate that the DNC shoves onto people if it's not Bernie Sanders. He's not surging statistically, but his numbers are very, very solid, and that's a big advantage when the other candidates are moving up and down. So that's what we always see. We always see, okay, Pete Buttigieg is rising here. Elizabeth Warren is rising there. Bernie never moves. Now, you might say that's a bad thing. No, he's saying it's a good thing because it's solid. You know his base is not going anywhere, no matter what happens in the news, no matter what happens at a debate. Sanders can only go up. You understand? In Iowa, the Sanders campaign believes its enthusiastic base of support is ready to deliver a surprise victory on February 3rd. The campaign's network of volunteers, led by young people and college students, knocked on 30,000 doors in 48 hours over the weekend. This is people power. This is how you win an election. You remember what AOC did? You remember how many doors she knocked on? She unseated Crowley. All right? She kicked his ass in Queens and the Bronx, man. That's how she did it. People power, knocking on doors, word of mouth. That's how you do this. That's how you win. And Bernie Sanders has the numbers. 1 million plus volunteers. Okay? He has the numbers, man. But it's not over yet. Remember what happened in the UK, man. Don't be arrogant. Don't be arrogant. It's not over yet. You need to get the word out. You need to tell your friends and family to make sure they are registered to vote and get out there on voting day. In the primary, especially in the primary. A Sanders event in rural Ottoman, Iowa, drew 200 people on Sunday night during a snowstorm. 200 people came out during a snowstorm to see Bernie Sanders. What do you call that, if that ain't dedication? Sanders also has a narrow lead in 2 of the past 3 polls in New Hampshire, where he posted a blowout victory against Clinton in 2016. On Friday, Sanders and Ilhan Omar turned out 1,300 people at a rally in Nashua, which is the largest crowd for any candidate in New Hampshire this year. And with the next debate in liberal California, the Sanders campaign is turning its sights on the Super Tuesday state with the largest delegate hall in the nation. Sanders will attend 5 events across California this week, including a Los Angeles rally with Representative AOC. The campaign has 5 offices in the state and says it has surpassed 8 million attempted voter contacts through its network of 760,000 volunteers. Again, that's more people power right there. California is very important, man. That's the state which is going to give you the most super delegates. All right? Very important state. And by the way, that's another reason why Kamala dropped out. She was in 4th place in her own state, man, when they were doing the polls. 4th. Abysmal. And while polls find Sanders running as good or better than anyone in head-to-head matchups against President Trump, many Democrats remain fearful that nominating a self-described socialist will be a surefire general election loser. Now, I find that sentence to be a contradiction in itself. You just said that Bernie Sanders is doing the best in head-to-head matchups with Donald Trump. So obviously, him being a socialist doesn't matter. Period. If Sanders emerges as the rival to Biden as the campaign enters the home stretch, there are questions on whether he can emerge on top. Former President Obama has reportedly told those close to him that he'd speak out against Sanders if he continues to build momentum. And some believe that other party leaders would join a concerted anyone but Bernie effort to block him from winning the nomination if it comes to that. Yeah, because they're snakes. Obama, Hillary Clinton, all these senior figures in the Democratic establishment, of course they don't want a socialist like Bernie or a progressive like Bernie, because he's going to start taxing all their friends and making them pay their fair share. And he's going to bring in structural reform, which is not good for the Wall Street donors and the billionaire class and the 1% and these corporate shills like Obama and Hillary. So Obama's going to speak out against Bernie Sanders, huh? Wow. You know, I low-key hope he does that because I think he's going to get torn to shreds. I think he's going to ruin his reputation with that. People are going to see him for what he really is, which is a corporate shill and a war criminal. So whatever, man. You know, do what you feel. Many mainstream Democrats continue to be annoyed by Sanders' persistent lines of attack against the National Party and the moderates who refuse to embrace the left's most ambitious policy proposal. Basically, what they're saying is the corporate Democrats, the centrists, are annoyed that Bernie is a principled person, that he won't quiver and he won't crumble under the pressure of the establishment. It doesn't please them that he's sticking to his guns. How in character, you know? He's still running the same divisive campaign and claiming that it's all rigged against him, says John Reinish, a Democratic strategist. Yes, it is. We know that it was rigged against him because we have the proof from WikiLeaks. Proven! We're not debating that. You're a liar or you're delusional, and I can't help you. The Sanders campaign says it's fueled by the doubters and by slights from the political press. Sanders' allies have made a pastime out of highlighting examples of media outlets ignoring or downplaying Sanders' standings in the polls. It's no surprise. The establishment will do what it's always done to protect the status quo, said Turner. We're ready for it. Thank God our victory won't be contingent on the establishment or media elites. Exactly. They have to highlight the bias. They have to highlight the unfairness that's exhibited towards Bernie Sanders because it's real. They know what's at stake. They're showing that to us. We know what's at stake. I'm showing that to you too. That we have a huge bias from these left-wing outlets like MSNBC and CNN who pretend to be left-wing elites. We have an enormous media bias, corporate media bias against Bernie Sanders because he represents a threat to them. And when people see that, they see that it's unfair. They see that the game is rigged. Don't be mad at us for pointing out the truth. Or for Bernie Sanders for pointing out the truth. Be mad at the truth. The game is rigged. These polls that are coming out now are good news for Bernie Sanders. Again, I'm not a poll truther. I don't really care for the polls. What I care about is the results. What I care about is the numbers. You know, when you tell me that Bernie Sanders is the number one candidate with the most donations, with the most individual donors too, with the most amount of volunteers, that is stuff that counts. When you tell me that he's making millions of phone calls a month, when you tell me he's knocking on thousands of doors in one weekend, I'm impressed by that. I think that's good work. I think that's people power. I think that's what wins elections, you know? And I don't doubt Bernie Sanders' capacity to win these states. He won half the states last time round, and he was running against Hillary Clinton, the queen of the Democratic establishment, a juggernaut, a behemoth. And look what he did. So I hope he can pull it off again, man. And I hope they don't kneecap him. You know, my biggest fear is that they're going to use this new deal that they struck to kneecap him, you know? If he doesn't get 51% of the vote the first time round, then the superdelegates get to decide who's going to be the nominee, and we're back to 2016. We're back to the same old corruption. That's my fear, man. But for now, this is good news. People need to step it up. Like I said, voteforbernie.org. You need to tell people to register to vote. This is the number one thing, man. That's results. That's going to bring in real results.